AI stocks are really hot right now. Companies like Palantir and Nvidia are making a lot of headlines.
Yeah, they are.
But today, we're going to kind of go off the beaten path a little bit. We're going to explore a company you might not have heard of.
Okay.
It's Upstart Holdings, and they're up, get this, 155% over the past year.
Wow.
And they're using AI to completely change the traditional lending world.
Yeah, that's right. We're doing a deep dive into Upstart today.
Yeah.
And we'll be using a recent article from the Motley Fool as our guide.
Okay, cool.
And this is going to be a really good deep dive for anyone who's interested in AI or fintech or just wants to understand how this tech is changing the game in finance.
Yeah, so for decades, FICO scores have basically been the king when it comes to, deciding who gets a loan and who doesn't.
Right.
But as most people know by now, FICO has its limitations.
Absolutely. It's true.
It's based on a pretty narrow set of factors.
It really is. It mainly looks at your past behavior, which doesn't always tell the whole story,
Right.
It can overlook important details about your current financial situation or even your potential for growth.
Yeah, and that's where Upstart comes in.
Exactly.
They're using AI to analyze thousands of data points, way more than a traditional credit score, to build a much more complete picture of a borrower. So instead of just looking at, like your credit history, they consider things like your education, your job history, and even your spending habits.
It's a very fascinating approach. By looking at this much wider range of data,
Yeah.
Upstart can get a much better understanding of a borrower's ability to repay a loan.
Mm-hmm.
And what's really remarkable is that they're able to do this while maintaining a risk profile that is comparable to traditional methods.
Yeah, and for the borrowers, the benefits are pretty significant.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Upstart boasts lower interest rates on average, faster approval decisions, and they're even expanding beyond just personal loans into things like auto loans and home equity lines of credit.
Yeah, it's a smart move. This expansion into different types of loans
Right.
is really key. It allows Upstart to access a much larger market and potentially reach a wider range of borrowers. And, with each loan that they make, their AI gets smarter and smarter.
It's amazing. So Upstart's journey hasn't been totally without, its bumps in the road.
Well, no company really has a perfect journey, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Rising interest rates and a dip in loan demand in 2022 and 2023 did have a negative impact on their revenue, but they bounced back strong in 2024.
They did.
With 24% year-over-year revenue growth.
It's true. Their ability to adapt and find growth in the face of economic challenges really does say a lot about the strength of their model.
Yeah, and then their fourth quarter of 2024 was especially impressive.
It was a big one.
They saw a 56% jump in revenue compared to the previous year.
Yeah, big jump.
Yeah, so they definitely ended the year on a high note.
For sure.
Loan originations increased across all their loan types. And although they're not turning a profit overall just yet, they are making progress toward profitability.
They are, and that's an important point to keep in mind, Investors are going to be watching closely to see if Upstart can turn this impressive growth into sustainable profitability.
Right.
And, their forecast of $1 billion in revenue for 2025 adds another layer of intrigue.
It's a bold target. And it's going to be really interesting to see how their price-to-sales ratio,
right,
which essentially tells us how much investors are willing to pay for every dollar of sales, plays out as they aim for that goal.
It will be. And here's the thing, Upstart has barely even scratched the surface of the massive U.S. lending market.
It's true.
So their potential for growth is enormous.
Yeah, if their AI continues to prove a fake it and they successfully implement their expansion plans, sky's the limit.
It really is. It's like we're witnessing a small company with disruptive technology taking on a giant industry.
Yeah, it's a real David and Goliath story.
Absolutely.
But instead of slingshots, they're armed with algorithms and data.
That's right.
And to really understand what makes Upstart's AI so special, we need to talk about their newest model, which is called Model 19.
Oh, yeah. Model 19 is a fascinating development. It really showcases Upstart's commitment to continuous improvement and refinement.
Yeah?
This new model is actually designed to learn from different states of delinquency.
Okay.
Meaning it can analyze data from borrowers who maybe missed payments in the past, but then got back on track.
Wow. So instead of penalizing someone for past financial hiccups,
exactly,
they're using those experiences to make the AI even smarter.
It's a much more nuanced way of looking at creditworthiness.
Yeah, Model 19 allows Upstart to look at the bigger picture and evaluate risk in a much more comprehensive way.
Right.
Recognizing that financial journeys are rarely perfect or, straightforward.
They rarely are. This really highlights how inflexible and outdated traditional lending model can be.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The world of finance is changing so rapidly.
It is.
And technology is the driving force behind that transformation. And Upstart is embracing that change head on.
They are. They're challenging the traditional way of thinking about creditworthiness, and they're opening up opportunities for borrowers who might have been overlooked in the past.
Right.
It's a really powerful concept that could have far-reaching implications for the entire financial industry.
Yeah, but like any disruptive innovation, Upstart faces its own set of challenges and potential risks.
Well, that's true of anything new and innovative.
Right.
Of course.
And for investors, it's important to consider these risks as carefully as you would consider the opportunities.
Absolutely. One of the biggest challenges that Upstart faces is the competitive landscape. Traditional banks are starting to wake up to the potential of AI, and they're starting to invest heavily in their own tech to catch up.
So it's becoming an AI arms race in the financial sector.
It really is. Upstart needs to stay ahead of the curve and constantly innovate to maintain their edge.
Yeah, and then there's the whole regulatory landscape to consider.
Oh, of course, the financial industry is heavily regulated.
Right.
And any changes or new regulations could significantly impact Upstart's business model.
Regulation's always kind of a wild card, especially in finance.
It is. You just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's an area that investors need to monitor really closely.
For sure.
And of course, we can't forget about the overall economic climate.
Right.
Upstart's business, like a lot of businesses, is sensitive to interest rates and, economic conditions.
That's true. An economic downturn could potentially impact loan demand, which would then impact Upstart's revenue.
Right.
Even with their cutting-edge technology, they're not immune to the forces of the wider economy.
So for anyone thinking about investing in Upstart, it's crucial to do your homework.
Absolutely.
And to understand both the risks and the rewards.
Couldn't agree more. But even with those risks, there's something really compelling about a company that's using AI to try and make financial decisions more fair and accessible.
I agree. It's a really interesting concept. They're challenging the traditional notion of creditworthiness. And they're trying to open up access to credit for people who might have been excluded in the past.
It's a mission with significant social and economic implications.
Absolutely. And it's a reminder that, innovation can come from anywhere.
It's true.
And disrupt even the most established industries.
Yeah, and sometimes the most established industries are the ones that are most ripe for disruption.
Exactly.
It's a good point.
We've covered a lot of ground here. Upstart's innovative technology, their impressive growth, the potential risks they face, and the broader implications of their approach. But before we wrap up, I'm curious, what really stood out to you in all of this? What's the one thing that will stick with you after this deep dive?
That's a good question. For me, it's the potential for AI to democratize access to credit. The idea that more people could have access to fair and affordable financing because of technology, it's incredibly powerful. What about you? What resonated with you?
Honestly, it's the audacity of Upstart's mission. They're taking on a massive industry with a completely new approach, and that takes a lot of courage and vision.
I completely agree. It's a good reminder that innovation can come from anywhere and challenge even the most deeply entrenched systems.
But let's kind of shift gears for a moment and talk about the practical side of things. We've talked a lot about potential. But what are some concrete things investors can look for to gauge Upstart's progress? What are the key indicators that things are moving in the right direction?
That's a great question. One of the most important things to watch is their loan origination volume. Is it continuing to grow? Are they expanding into new segments as planned? These are signs of healthy growth and market penetration.
So it's about seeing how those numbers translate into real-world results. And it's important to remember that Upstart isn't just some abstract tech company. They're dealing with people's finances, their livelihoods. That adds another layer of complexity and responsibility to their work.
Absolutely. The decisions made by Upstart's AI have real-world consequences for borrowers. It's crucial that they prioritize fairness and transparency in their algorithms and that they have robust systems in place to ensure responsible lending practices.
So it's about striking a balance between automation and human oversight, especially when it comes to sensitive financial decisions.
Exactly. Finding that balance will be critical to Upstart's long-term success.
Right. And we touched on competitions from traditional banks, but what about the regulatory landscape? The financial industry is heavily regulated.
Oh, absolutely.
And any changes could significantly impact Upstart's business model.
You're absolutely right. Investors need to keep a close eye on regulatory developments. Any shifts in the regulatory landscape could present both opportunities and challenges for Upstart.
And of course, we can't ignore the overall economic climate. Upstart's business, like many others, is sensitive to interest rates and economic conditions.
Exactly. An economic downturn could potentially impact loan demand and consequently Upstart's revenue. Even with cutting-edge technology, they're not immune to the forces of the wider economy. This is something potential investors need to consider carefully.
So for anyone thinking about investing in Upstart, due diligence is essential. Understanding both the potential rewards and the inherent risks is crucial.
I agree. Upstart's journey is a fascinating one to watch, but it's not without its complexities. They're challenging the status quo, pushing the boundaries of what's possible in finance.
And they're raising important questions about how we assess creditworthiness in the age of AI.
It's a reminder that technology is not just about algorithms and data, it's about people. It's about the impact technology has on our lives and on the way we interact with the world around us.
And with that in mind, we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this shift toward AI-driven financial decisions? Do you believe the benefits outweigh the potential risk? Let us know. We'd love to hear your perspective.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Upstart Holdings. We hope this exploration has given you a better understanding of this innovative company and the broader trends shaping the future of finance.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep. It's fascinating to think about how technology is reshaping our relationship with something as fundamental as credit.
Yeah, it really is. Upstart's approach is really making us rethink these traditional notions of creditworthiness and explore new possibilities for, financial inclusion.
Yeah, and it's not just about expanding access. Upstart is also streamlining the entire lending process, making it faster and more efficient for everyone involved.
That's right. Their emphasis on automation and data analysis is changing the game, making lending decisions much quicker and potentially more objective.
But as we've been discussing, this reliance on AI also raises some important questions about transparency and accountability. How do we ensure that these algorithms are fair and unbiased? How do we prevent any unintended consequences or even discrimination?
Those are critical questions. It's not enough to just implement AI. We need to ensure that it's being used responsibly and ethically. And human oversight and, ongoing evaluation are going to be key to mitigating any potential risks.
It's a tough balancing act. We want to harness the power of AI without losing sight of the human element, especially when it comes to, financial decisions that have such a big impact on people's lives.
I think that's a really key takeaway from our deep dive into Upstart. It's a reminder that technology is a tool.
Right.
And like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad. It's up to us to shape its development and application in a way that benefits society as a whole.
So is Upstart Holdings the next big AI success story? Only time will tell. But they're definitely pushing the boundaries of what's possible in finance, and their impact could extend far beyond the lending industry.
Absolutely. Whether they achieve their ambitious goals or not, Upstart has definitely started a very important conversation about the role of AI in our financial lives. They're challenging the status quo, and they're forcing us to kind of rethink these long-held assumptions about credit and lending and access to financial opportunities. And that's a contribution worth acknowledging, regardless of their ultimate success.
And on that note, we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Upstart's approach to lending? Do you see AI as a force for good in the financial world? Share your perspective with us. We'd love to keep this conversation going.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Upstart Holdings. We hope you found it informative and thought-provoking.
Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the fascinating world of technology and innovation.